For a very long time, it was believed that the oldest evidence of humans in North America came from the Clovis culture, who resided on the continent approximately 13,000 years ago. And for quite a while, the idea of humans occupying North America before 13,000 years ago was looked at as being preposterous. But last October, October 2021, news came out about a new discovery made in the Tularosa Basin at White Sands in New Mexico in North America. Human footprints had been discovered that date back to at least 23,000 years ago. This discovery already pushed back the timeline of human occupation in North America at least 10,000 years, as the dating method used showed that it could not have been younger than 23,000 years ago. My name is Kaylee, and in this video I am going to look into the latest discovery of the earliest human presence in North America. And this news will probably blow your mind and show that the historic timeline for human occupation in North America still needs to be pushed back thousands of years. More than 10,000 years. That's insane. So let's get into it, shall we? To be honest with you, one of the most heated debates in paleontology in modern times is the question of when humans started to inhabit the Americas and how they made their way to the American continents. It's said that crossing the Pacific Ocean has been one of humanity's greatest achievements, mostly because every proposed theory on how it was done has flaws, so trying to narrow down the timing of when this crossing occurred might help rule out some of these theories and maybe eventually lead to understanding how they did it. But as you can imagine, for researchers to find out that time frame, they need to discover the oldest evidence of human presence in the Americas. And like I mentioned at the start of this video, this means that that piece of evidence has to be older than 23,000 years ago, as this has been the current oldest tangible evidence for human occupation in North America. And yes, there are some possibilities of evidence for maybe up to 30,000 years ago when it comes to human occupation. Even at White Sands in New Mexico, this was a possibility of there being older footprints, but more research is needed to confirm or contest these older dates. But a new paper in Frontiers in Ecology and Evolution from scientists at the University of Texas in Austin, Texas, described the discovery of mammoth bones found in New Mexico's Rio Puerco Canyon. And they consider this discovery as the most convincing evidence for the arrival of humans in North America. But just the discovery of mammoth bones doesn't really sound like evidence for human occupation, as, mammoths don't really need humans to survive. In fact, I bet they were living a much better life before humans started to inhabit their habitats. Why mammoth bones, you may ask? What led these researchers to believe that these mammoth bones are the oldest pieces of evidence for human occupation in North America? Well, to answer that is actually quite simple, as they said they found clear marks of butchery on these bones. And that wasn't the only thing that they found. They discovered bone knives, and even though the edges of these knives have been worn, it's clear that they were used and actually perfectly suited for cutting. And they also found signs of controlled fires and bones that have suffered blunt force trauma. None of the bones discovered at the Rio Puerco Canyon site show any signs of tooth marks from carnivores who were scavenging, which actually suggests that humans probably kept the predatory animals away. In about 3/4 of the site, they found bone flakes that were struck either parallel or perpendicular to the grain. This is actually consistent with tool making, and this is not consistent with any geological forces or scavenging marks. So in the past, they have extracted collagen from some of these mammoth bones, and these have been dated to be between 36,250 and 38,900 years ago. I mean, this age range is significantly older than the current believed oldest evidence of humans in North America, which was 23,000 years ago. I mean, this is more than 10,000 years older, which is quite the staggering difference. And the previous discovery at White Sands was already 10,000 years older than what we had known before that discovery was made, which means that within the time frame of less than a year, we have pushed back the timeline for human occupation on the North American continent by more than 25,000 years. So here on the screen, you can see a close-up of the bone pile during the excavations. And what you can see is a random mix of ribs, a molar, broken cranial bones, bone fragments, and stone cobbles. This pile was discovered underneath the skull of an adult mammoth, including its tusks. And this is, a pile that was discovered on this site. I don't know how large this site is and how many of these kind of piles they have found. But I mean, they have discovered the evidence for humans that were shaping pieces of these bones into blades to cut and break down the carcasses. And they discovered the evidence of humans rendering the fat of these mammoths over a fire. According to Timothy Rowe, a paleontologist and professor at the Jackson School of Geosciences at the University of Texas in Austin, Texas, this is not a charismatic site with one beautiful skeleton. It's a bust-up site, and that's what the story is. And if I'm going to be completely honest with you, watching this video, I think it's exactly what we could have expected from a site where butchery and the creation of bone tools has taken place. It would be really strange if this site was completely neatly organized while butchery and creation of tools made from bones have taken place there. That doesn't make any sense. So Timothy Rowe normally doesn't research mammoth bones, nor does he research humans. But he got involved because these bones were literally found in his backyard. A neighbor had actually spotted a tusk on his property in 2013. And when Rowe started to investigate, he discovered a bashed-in mammoth skull. And, some other bones that looked like they were deliberately broken. I don't see how an animal could deliberately break a bone. And even though no stone tools were discovered at the site, thankfully CT scans were able to reveal the butchering patterns on these bones. These CT scans were actually taken by the University of Texas High-Resolution X-ray Computed Tomography facility. So these CT scans actually showed bone flakes with microscopic fracture networks, similar to those in freshly knapped cow bones. And the scans revealed well-placed puncture wounds that would have helped in draining the grease from the ribs and the vertebral bones. The researchers actually also conducted chemical analysis of the sediment that surrounded the bones, and this analysis showed that fire particles from a controlled and sustained burn were present. They were not consistent with, like, for instance, a wildfire or a lightning strike, but consistent with a by humans controlled and created fire. This sediment material that they analyzed also contained pulverized bone and the burned remains of small animals like birds, rodents, and lizards. And it actually mostly contained burnt remains of fish, even though this site is approximately 200 feet above the nearest river. And while Timothy Rowe's expertise may lie with dinosaurs, like my sister, this does not mean that he's not qualified to research this site. And he excavated at the site with colleagues, and this research was funded by the Jackson School, the National Science Foundation, and the W.J.J. Gordon Foundation. The fact that this research was funded shows that it is being taken seriously and that it is time that we expand our perception of the earliest humans in North America. There are actually some researchers that believe that there were two founding populations in North America: a pre-Clovis society of East Asian ancestry and the Clovis culture, who provided the majority of the pre-European genome. These two seem to have a clear different genetic lineage. And of course, a genetic lineage is not the same as a special lineage. Just wanted to make sure that I said that. Of course, more research is needed, and until we discover tangible human evidence, like for instance fossilized bones dating this far back, we can't prove without a doubt that there was more than one founding population. And even if we do discover fossilized human remains dating this far back, it's unclear if we are able to extract DNA, as the climate in New Mexico is quite hot and, unforgiving. Let's keep it at that. Discoveries like these, however, do show evidence of a pre-Clovis culture, and I think it's time that this is being taken seriously. Humans have been walking on the North American lands most likely for at least 36,000 years, it seems, and possibly even longer. And hopefully, as time goes by, more discoveries will be made and we will reveal older dates, pushing back the timeline with each new discovery. The story of the first occupation of the Americas is far from being told, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. This is a story that will be rewritten every few years in the future, and honestly, I'm extremely excited for this. And if you haven't seen my video on the fossilized footprints at White Sands in New Mexico, you can see the thumbnail right here, and I will add it as a card in the upper right corner, probably hitting the screen right now, so you can check it out without the hassle of having to search for it yourself. But with that said, you have reached the end of this new discovery video. If you enjoyed watching, then don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you'd like to see more of these kind of videos, and click that bell icon if you want to be notified whenever I upload. If you haven't seen my previous videos yet, then again, click the card in the upper right corner, or click a link in the description down below, or click a video in the end card. The end card is also set to best for viewers, so YouTube caters to you and what it is that you like to watch, I would also like to say a massive thank you to all my patrons and my channel members. Thank you so much for supporting me, and I will start posting more on Patreon because I've been not good at it. I haven't posted anything for quite a while now, and I'm extremely sorry for that. And I will do that more often. And when I will make a Patreon post, I will also make that as a channel member dedicated YouTube community post, only visible for the channel members. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'll try and do better. I've been really overwhelmed with everything YouTube for the past, I think nearly 10 months now. It's been overwhelming the way this channel just kind of blew up. About a year ago, I was at 5,000 or 6,000 subscribers. I'm nearing 100,000 subscribers right now. My life changed completely. It's going to take a while for me to get used to everything, so I'm very sorry for not keeping up with Patreon and the channel members and keeping you in the loop, what's going on about my life and all that stuff. But yeah, I'll post more, I promise. And when I promise something, I always make sure that I keep my promise, so you're gonna get extra content. And with that said, I will see you in the next video. Enough of me blabbing. Okay, bye!